I just received a diagnosis for a terminal illness. In less than 3 minutes, my three filthy rich sisters didn't even bother trying to get me treatment. Instead, they voted to kick me out of the house. But when they saw me reunite with my real sister, they all regretted it. They cried and begged me to come back to them. But it was all too late. Right now, hearing the doctor's ultimatum, your condition means you won't last more than a year. My mind was left completely blank. My legs felt like lead as I walked out of the hospital. The phone in my pocket vibrated, making me pull it out instinctively. Seeing the eldest sister's name on the screen, my heart suddenly skipped a beat. I didn't expect her to remember that today was my checkup, even though she's often angry with me for no reason. This concern right now was enough to comfort me. The doctor said, but before I could finish, Mu Yulu impatiently cut me off. Whether you saw a doctor or not doesn't matter anymore. I'm calling to inform you that we've found your biological mother, so from now on, don't call us sisters anymore. And don't you ever come back to the Mu family. Ever again. You were never our real younger brother anyway. Mu Yulu's words didn't hide her cold tone, accompanied by clear disgust. It answered my long-standing questions. The eldest sister is a domineering CEO, the richest person in Junk City. The second sister is an A-list star, the queen of the music industry. I was always careful to please them, but was never acknowledged. Turns out I was just an adopted child. Now that they've found their biological brother, they don't want to pretend for even one more second. So they immediately made this call, unable to wait any longer to kick me to the curb. Muyulu thought that after making everything clear, the massive shock would cause me to collapse or even scream in a frenzy. Then she could use an even colder tone to make me see reality clearly, to let me know we were never from the same world. But I just calmly replied and accepted it all. This instead caught her off guard on the other end. The other end of the line was stunned, but that surprise only lasted for a moment. After all this saved them a settlement fee. Muyulu immediately regained her focus, preparing to welcome their biological younger brother. As for what a replacement like me was thinking, nobody bothered to care about such heartlessness. After the call ended, Butler Liu knocked and entered, handing her the outfits for the gala in a few days. Every set was crafted by top-tier tailors. Just the accompanying jewelry alone cost billions. This caused the last bit of guilt in Muyulu's heart to instantly vanish into thin air, allowing someone who couldn't touch high society to experience a luxurious life for all those years. The Mu family owed Mu Chen nothing. Butler, I want a bowl of noodles now. The usual way. Butler Liu heard this and hesitated for a moment, but immediately nodded in agreement. Just 15 minutes later, Butler Liu brought the bowl of noodles up. Muyulu took just one bite and frowned. Old Liu, did you check the ingredients purchased today? Butler Liu noticed Muyulu's dissatisfaction. He thought it was just a bowl of noodles. Any chef making it would be the same. But reality proved his judgment wrong. Yulu was clearly very unhappy with these noodles. Butler Liu thought for a moment and replied, there's nothing wrong with the ingredients. I checked them all. Perhaps because it was always Mu Chen who cooked the noodles before, the taste is a bit different now. I will tell the chef to adjust the flavor immediately. Mu Yulu immediately called Butler Liu back. What do you mean by that? My habit of eating noodles in the morning has been over a year. Are you saying Mu Chen cooked all of them? Butler Liu nodded in confirmation, leaving Mu Yulu stunned on the spot. Then in her voice, there was a hint of reproach. Mu Chen was a young master before, after all. How could you let him do such menial work? Butler Liu hurriedly began to explain. Didn't you have a long period of stomach pain before, to the point where you couldn't eat anything? After Mu Chen found out, he proactively busied himself for days, just to make these noodles for me to bring up to you. Muyulu waved her hand upon hearing this. This was indeed the first time she had heard of this. However, she only felt a slight stir of emotion. In fact, very soon after, she felt it was only natural. After all, compared to everything the Mu family had given him, a small matter like cooking, these noodles wasn't even worth mentioning. At this time, I had returned to my biological mother's house. Throughout the entire journey here, I saw the utility poles and trees in front of the house, plastered everywhere with missing child flyers for me. This is the room. My mother Huilan's voice trembled slightly. The room wasn't large, but it was incredibly clean. On the table was an orchid pattern on tablecloth. With a white background, this was the room with the best light in the entire house. The room Mom had specifically set aside for me. My eyes suddenly blurred. Mom never gave up looking for me. This house always kept a place for me, making me feel like I finally had a home. At noon, I had a long-awaited family meal with my elementary school-aged sister and my mother. Mom just stared at me for a long time. She still remembered the early years after I went missing. Her world seemed to lose the boundary between day and night. Back then, she barely rested for a single moment, taking tens of thousands of missing child flyers to paste in every corner of the city. But not a single phone call ever came. Sometimes, when walking past shops on the street, she always felt a face appearing in the glass windows. It's so good that I finally found my way back to her. Right then, my little sister Sue, Zhao Nuan, saw the rare smile on Mom's face. and couldn't help but daze out for a moment. Then she also broke into a happy smile. After finishing lunch, Su Xiao, Nuan was very sensible and proactively cleared the dishes. She went into the kitchen, rolled up her sleeves, and washed up like a pro. Seeing that, I hurriedly stood up to wash them with her. Thanks, big brother. That big brother title she was too shy to use during the meal. Su Xiaonuan finally blurted it out just now. Hearing this, I immediately felt incredibly peaceful and warm. Before in the Mu family's luxurious villa, even if I sat on the same sofa as them, it always felt like we belonged to two completely different worlds. At this moment, I secretly made a vow. At least in the brief time I have left, I absolutely won't let mom and my little sister suffer through any more hardships. In the evening before bed, I received a voice message from mom. Are you okay with the food at home? Tomorrow I'll buy some ribs to cook for you kids. I also smiled and sent a voice reply, yes, mom. Hearing that, mom made Su Huilan daze out and burst into tears. She had always felt insecure deep down, fearing I'd look down on such a poor family. But now her fears were completely gone. The good days ahead were still long. Early the next morning, Mu Yulu woke up on time. From the moment the master awakens, the entire staff of servants in the manor begins to operate. What time each person must appear in which area is clearly regulated. So just 5 minutes later, her makeup artist was in the room on time. During the makeup process, she thought about her biological brother Mu Xuan returning to the country. Before her real brother returns, she must throw out all of his belongings to keep her brother from seeing them and feeling uncomfortable. But a question popped into her head. Where exactly is Mu Chen's room? 10 minutes later, Mu Yulu walked with the butler. Outside the main building, the crystal clear lake reflected the beautiful scenery around. The soft grass stretched into the distance. Under the shade of the towering poplar trees, a natural scene of singing birds and fragrant flowers appeared. This was the result of 3 gardening experts with salaries of over 5 billion per year. The result? That everyone painstakingly cares for every day. Mu Yulu thought to herself, if she wasn't lucky enough, then even with 100 years of effort, she could never live in an environment like this. But as she kept walking, Mu Yulu suddenly realized something was wrong. Uncle Liu, didn't I tell you to lead me to Mu Chen's room? Butler Liu nodded, his white-gloved right hand pointing forward. The place where young Master Mu Chen used to stay is right here. Mu Yulu was stunned upon hearing that. Isn't that building the servants' quarters? Then she suddenly remembered. This was actually arranged by her personally many years ago. At the time, she thought that since he wasn't real family anyway, if he experienced this luxury from a young age, he would likely grow up to be a spoiled brat, even if the Mu family's prestige meant they didn't care about this bit of money. In the eyes of outsiders, Mu Chen was still a member of the Mu family. She didn't want his behavior to make the Mu family lose face, so she decided to raise him under a frugal regime. But after all these years, did he never proactively ask to change rooms? Mu Yulu found it a bit hard to believe. She never considered him her real brother. Otherwise, she wouldn't have forgotten which room he stayed in. But regardless, he was her brother in name. If he had spoken up and asked back then, why wouldn't she have changed his room? Butler Liu's expression hesitated upon hearing this. Over the years even, an outsider like him could clearly see the bone-deep disgust that Mu Yulu had for me. There were many times when I, full of joy, went to Mu Yulu to share interesting things at school and my excellent academic achievements, but before I could speak, I was heartlessly cut off. Even when he reported my matters to Mu Yulu, he would sometimes get caught in the crossfire. Yulu would order him to shut up and scold him, that he shouldn't bother her with my business anymore. She didn't want to hear it. Butler Liu understood this very well. Perhaps it was because I grew up in such an environment, combined with the fact that I had been a sensible child since I was little, that I'd rather silently endure the mistreatment than let this matter upset the eldest sister. Mu Yulu saw that look and seemed to realize something. But someone as arrogant as her would absolutely never admit it. It doesn't matter anymore. After all, the person has already been kicked out. Besides, the servants' quarters, while not as spacious or luxurious as the main building, still have much better conditions than most average middle-class families. After that, Mu Yulu followed Butler Liu through the long corridor straight to the room where I used to stay. As she headed down the stairs, she was completely stunned. She never in her wildest dreams thought a nominal young master like me would have to live in the basement. She was about to open her mouth to scold Butler Liu, but old memories suddenly flooded back into her mind. That year, the butler had arranged for me to stay in a guest room in the main building. It was she who bluntly rejected that proposal and gave a harsh order for me to get out and live in the north building. But the north building was originally for the servants, and there was absolutely not a single normal room available. So naturally, I was shoved into this room. The room wasn't small, and the furniture was somewhat adequate, but the moment Mu Yulu stepped into this room, she immediately felt a sense of coldness and dampness. In her heart, an unprecedented surge of self-reproach suddenly rose up. The residence of her nominal younger brother, who had lived with her for so many years, turned out to be worse than that of an ordinary servant. While casually clearing out the things in the room, Muyulu discovered many items in the drawers. There was a broken remote control car and some old battered toy blocks. There was also a watch whose hands had stopped moving long ago. At first she sneered. Outsiders will always be outsiders. Even these scraps of junk not worth a penny he couldn't bear to throw away. But when she looked closely at the watch, she was suddenly stunned. If she remembered correctly, this seemed to be something that many years ago she had casually tossed to him. Unexpectedly, after all these years passed, even though this broken watch had stopped running, he had still kept it like a treasure. This made Mu Yulu guess that the other things in the drawer were likely also items that her sisters had once casually given to him. She really didn't expect that the things she had casually bestowed back then would hold such weight in his heart. Mu Yulu originally intended to throw these things away like trash, but perhaps because of a flickering feeling in her heart, she decided to deliver this pile of junk to me as a final farewell, ending things on a good note. After packing the old items into a storage box, she saw a stack of forms deep inside the drawer. Taking them out to look, it turned out to be scholarship applications. She furrowed her brows, once again feeling confused. Old Liu, didn't I tell you to give him a monthly living allowance? Why was he so broke that he had to apply for scholarships like this? Mu Yulu said this without any other real intention, simply feeling that since they lived under the Mu roof, having to go to school to beg for a few scholarship dollars would be no different from telling the world the Mu family was mistreating him. But as soon as Mu Yulu finished speaking, she immediately remembered her previous decision to raise him frugally. The living allowance given to him was absolutely not by elite standards, but more like that of an average family, at 7 million Vietnamese dong per month. But then again, even if it really was only 7 million Vietnamese dong, it shouldn't have been to the point of being so poor he had to apply for scholarships. Butler Liu heard this and hurriedly bowed his head to explain. The 7 million Vietnamese dong for living expenses each month, I transferred it all on time. Previously young master, Mu Chen once secretly borrowed a sum of money from me. He said he needed it urgently to prepare a birthday gift for you. At that time, I felt bad for the young master, so I told him he didn't need to pay it back. But very soon after, the young master still found enough money to repay me. Perhaps it was because of that. Moyulu heard this and suddenly realized that, for all these years, every time she had a birthday, I had poured my heart into preparing a gift for her. But because those gifts looked like cheap street junk, she would usually throw them straight into the trash the next day. But she was always so high and mighty that she forgot. I was never actually a young master of the Mew family. Those cheap, worthless items, as far as I was concerned, were already the best gifts within my means. Coincidentally, I ran into Mu Yulu this morning. Seeing me, she froze for a moment. Wait, don't leave yet. I have something to give you. But I acted like I didn't hear a thing, and didn't even slow down. This left Mu Yulu stunned on the spot. In her arrogant, stereotypical impression of me, I had always followed her every word. Why had I suddenly become so cold? Mu Yulu frowned but didn't think too much of it. She took a box of old belongings from her assistant. Mu Chen, these are the things from your old room. There are a few less important things left in the car. I'll have someone bring them to your house later on the way. Hearing that, I finally stopped walking. I took the box and casually opened it to look. Thanks CEO Mu. Before Mu Yulu could even process this new title, she witnessed a scene that left her completely speechless. I threw the entire box of belongings into the trash. By the time she finally snapped out of her shock, her fake little brother Me was already long gone. The assistant standing nearby saw this and said indignantly, Sister Yulu, after all, the trouble you took to personally deliver his stuff. You should have just tossed this pile of junk into the trash to begin with. I raised him for all these years so that he could study at the top university in the country. It can be said there is absolutely nothing to feel ashamed of regarding him, and yet he has no gratitude at all, even daring to show that rotten attitude toward you. Truly an ungrateful brat who can't be tamed. Mu Yulu couldn't stand to hear another word. When she heard me call her CEO Mu, she felt as if she had permanently lost something. However, that nameless sense of loss was quickly replaced by an uncontrollable rage. The reason she humbled herself to come here and give these things was because she thought that in my heart, I still considered her my sister, which is why I treasured the items she casually tossed me like gems. But after witnessing the scene before her eyes, Mu Yulu believed she had seen through my true colors. This made her feel that the decision she and her other sisters made together to kick me out was absolutely correct. However, Mu Yulu chose to forget that. Previously, on more than one occasion, when I called her sister in public, she had, out of disgust, pretended not to know me at all. It also wasn't just once that she high and mighty had scolded me, forcing me to call her CEO Mu on those occasions, warning me that being called sister in public was embarrassing. Now that I'm actually doing what she wanted, she feels indignant about it. Assistant Shen saw Mu Yulu fuming with rage and stood by continuing to fan the flames. It's come to this and he doesn't even have any shame left. In the future, when that ingrate comes to beg us, we'll just coldly kick him away. A social climber like him is out of options now. He'll definitely regret this until he's blue in the face. Mu Yulu listened to these consoling words, and the anger in her heart cooled down a bit. You're right. He will definitely regret it later. Then Mu Yulu rummaged through the bag the assistant brought. She remembered my old stuff was in there, intending to find it all and dump it in the trash. Not long after, she pulled out a stack of old documents. Mu Yulu was afraid her own files got mixed in, so she flipped through them. Inside this pile of worn-out documents were my university scholarship applications, and even my report cards from childhood until now. When Mu Yulu saw these grades, her eyes couldn't help but narrow slightly, because she truly didn't expect that my academic performance since I was small was that good. Almost every single time I was at the top of the class. I even scored 680 on the college entrance exam. This left Mu Yulu momentarily stunned. In the past, she never cared about my grades. Even before this, she thought my admission into a top-tier prestigious school was all thanks to the Mu family's massive annual donations. Now it seems I got in based on my own sheer talent. Mu Yulu suddenly felt a bit of regret. This score compared to the top scholar probably wasn't off by much, putting other aspects aside. Just looking at it from a talent investment perspective, he was actually very valuable to groom. But since things have reached this point, thinking too much is useless, as long as she has enough money in her hands. Elite students like this are a dime a dozen. Mu Yulu continued to flip through the files and found several more medical checkup reports. This made her feel it was ridiculous, thinking to herself if he was just too afraid of dying. Even at this young age, he had gone for so many checkups. Furthermore, in that phone call yesterday, she also heard him mention a doctor. So she curiously opened the report to see what exactly he was getting checked for. It was a medical form from when I was 16. After seeing the contents of the report, Mu Yulu froze right then and there. The attending physician wrote very clearly. Patient reports that over the past half month, he frequently experiences heart palpitations, fevers, and dry heaving. Initial diagnosis was malnutrition and hepatitis. Final diagnosis, hepatitis. Mu Yulu read this and was completely dazed. How could this be possible? Every meal at the Mu family manor was planned by nutritionists. How could he possibly be malnourished? But immediately after, she suddenly realized she had never allowed me to sit at the same table with them once a long time ago. All the sisters had returned to the manor. I had worked with the butler to prepare ingredients, busying myself in the kitchen to cook a lavish spread of food. That time she originally intended to make an exception for me. However, two distinguished guests suddenly paid a visit. So she told me to give up my seat for the guests and ordered me to get lost and eat with the servants. Now recalling the past, she finally began to sense that something was wrong. Perhaps because I was always so stoic and incredibly obedient. I didn't show even a hint of dissatisfaction back then, only silently swallowing my humiliation. That's why she never saw a problem with it. This caused her to have a sudden realization. Living under the same roof all these years, she had at least some feelings for me. But her prejudice was bone deep. She always viewed me as a complete stranger. But even when I was in high school, crowding in to eat with the servants every day, it shouldn't have been enough to cause malnutrition. Carrying this lingering doubt, she called Butler Liu. This was absolutely not out of concern or regret. She just wanted to interrogate the staff to see if they had been doing their jobs properly back then. The call was quickly connected. She coldly asked the question. Butler Liu on the other end was silent for a moment, then carefully replied, perhaps during that time, he often didn't have time to eat. That year you said to absolutely not coddle him to prevent him from developing bad habits in the house. You told me to keep his daily routine exactly like the servants. But the servants' meals are cleared away on the dot, so he ended up with nothing to eat and was left starving. Mu Yulu grew more confused as she listened. What did this have to do with cause and effect? Did he actually dare to get angry and go on a hunger strike, purposely refusing to eat at mealtime, only to end up with no food at all? Mu Yulu gave a cold snort. If he really tortured himself like that, then he totally brought it on himself. He didn't have the fate of a young master, yet he had the attitude of one. After listening, Butler Liu gave a bitter smile and explained, do you remember when he begged you to arrange a driver, Mu? Yulu lowered her head in deep thought upon hearing this. A moment later, she vaguely remembered that this was indeed the case. At that time, it was he who proactively suggested it. When Mu Yulu heard such an unreasonable request, she flatly refused without even thinking about it. After all, she had already decided to raise me frugally, so there was no way she'd provide a private driver for me. She even suspected I was delusional, wanting to use the manor's driver to go show off. That did happen. But what does that have to do with eating meals? Are you saying I threw a tantrum over this and purposely went on a hunger strike to protest? Butler Liu hurriedly shook his head and explained. At that time, he didn't utter a single word of complaint. The next day, he used his allowance to buy a bicycle and rode that old clunker bike to school every day. Mu Yulu heard this and thought it was fine. Young people should exercise their bodies more. But the butler's next words completely shattered her self-satisfaction. Butler Liu sighed and continued. High school was actually too far from the manor. Even by bike, it took over an hour to make it to school on time every day. He had to wake up by 5:30 a.m., but the meal times for the manor staff are fixed from 700 to 900, meaning every day when he left the house. The kitchen hadn't even started the fire yet. As for dinner, he often missed it because of too much schoolwork. Butler Liu sighed at this point. Back then, his heart ached as he watched, and he repeatedly brought up the issue of my meals. But Mu Yulu was always too impatient and cut him off, constantly ranting, preaching that everyone must be treated equally and absolutely no special favors given. Mu Yulu felt like she was struck by lightning upon hearing this, finally realizing just how massive her mistake was. She always had luxury cars picking her up and dropping her off, so she had long forgotten the hardships of those at the bottom of society. She always thought children from ordinary families didn't deserve a private driver, so she naturally assumed I was just causing trouble, completely ignoring the fact that this manor was so isolated, and the distance to high school was truly too far. My request was actually very reasonable, even taking a step back if she wouldn't provide a car. She only needed to arrange for the chef to cook a bit earlier, providing care like a normal family to accommodate my daily schedule. But she blocked both of those options. Now Muyulu was forced to admit that my starving until I got sick was all thanks to her blessings. After hanging up, the phone assistant Shen, who was aggressively ranting earlier, now felt like her face was stinging as if slapped. But regardless, I was just a fake, not Muyulu's biological brother. Even though Muyulu knew she was in the wrong, she was used to being high and mighty. There was no way she would ever bow her head and apologize to me. She simply ordered someone to deliver the items to get it over with. At the same time, at the Mew family, Manhwa, a pure and elegant young girl, sat alone by her bed. Her skin was white as snow, her features as exquisite as a masterpiece. No matter where she was always the center of attention. Her name is Mu Yueyao, the currently famous music queen. Her new song released not long ago immediately dominated all the major music charts. Last night, Mu Yueyao suffered from insomnia again. She was terrified this feeling would return, fearing she'd become a useless person staying up all night again. So she began to painfully try to remember how her insomnia had been cured before. Out of habit, she just reached for her phone, wanting to call me over to massage her hands for her. Only then did she snap back to reality and realize I was no longer in this house. She and her sisters had personally kicked me out, but that bit of sadness also quickly flickered out. After all, he was just an unrelated outsider. Now that her biological brother is about to come home having a fake, staying in the house would be totally improper. She immediately ordered the butler to find a massage therapist, but it was impossible to find that sense of peace from before. When I brought my exhausted body back home, I found the living room dark without a single light. On the table, hot dishes were clearly still laid out. Why isn't anyone here right at that moment? The sizzle of sparklers rang out. Candlelight flickered on. Happy birthday, big brother, Sue. Huilin walked out from behind the gifts with a smile, placing the birthday cake steadily on the table. Su Xiaonuan excitedly ran to the side, pulling a tablecloth away with one hand to reveal an electronic keyboard. She said she wanted to play a song she just learned from me. I was both surprised and full of questions. When I first came home yesterday, there clearly wasn't a keyboard in the living room. This isn't something an ordinary family could afford. But I quickly discovered a label on the keyboard, Wang Xiaomei Class 2. My nose suddenly began to sting to celebrate this birthday for me. My little sister actually went and borrowed a keyboard. During those long years at the Mew house, no one ever cared about my birthday. Watching my sister's serious expression as she played, I stood by with red eyes, clapping and softly singing along to the melody. As the song ended, I ruffled her hair and asked, "Do you really like playing the piano so? Wait until I earn some money, I'll buy you one." Sue Xiaonuan's face couldn't hide her joy upon hearing that. A "thank you, big brother" was about to escape her lips, but being sensible, she forced herself to swallow it back. She blinked her big eyes and said something she didn't mean. "Actually, I don't like it that much." How could I not see through my little sister's thoughts? I just smiled without exposing her, thinking to myself that I must give her a big surprise later. So I just went with the flow and changed the subject. "Thank you, I really love it. Let me play a song for you too, okay?" Su Xiaonuan's eyes widened in surprise. "Wow, brother, I didn't know you could play." Two, just as I sat down to show off my skills, there was suddenly a gentle knock at the door. I opened the door and froze on the spot. A young girl wearing a white shirt paired with a short skirt, her jet black ponytail highlighting her long, slender swan neck. A light breeze brushed through the strands of hair by her ears. Seeing me open the door, Ye Qinghuan's lips curled into a sweet smile. Looks like this lady didn't find the wrong house, huh? She held out an exquisite gift box with both hands. Mu Chen, happy birthday to you. Seeing me standing there dazed without reacting, she tilted her head and softly asked, aren't you going to invite your bestie in for a bit? She was my high school classmate. She probably heard about my situation from the class group chat, which is why she chose today to come to my door. Su Xiaonuan looked at this fairy-like sister, then looked back at me standing there like a statue. Her small face lit up with gossip, a mischievous smile. Like a little impy, she leaned close to me, tugging my shirt and whispering in a breezy voice, hey, is that pretty sister your girlfriend? This house was tiny, so Ye Qinghuan couldn't possibly have missed that. In her eyes, a flash of shyness and embarrassment passed through. She quickly turned away, pretending to look at the scenery, trying to act calm as if nothing happened. But her bright red earlobes completely betrayed her. However, my next answer was like a bucket of cold water. No, she isn't. In truth, how could my heart not be moved? A rich young lady sought after by everyone like her, with a personality and looks that were perfectly flawless. But a walking corpse like me, what right do I have to talk about love? Xiao Nuan couldn't understand the complex feelings of adults. She pulled me straight toward the electronic keyboard. I took the chance to sit down at the keys. My slender fingers began to fly across the keyboard, the music melodious and smooth like a flowing stream. Ye Qinghuan was immediately and deeply captivated by this melody. Even the slight disappointment from before was tossed aside. As the song ended, the lingering notes still drifted. Su Xiaonuan excitedly clapped her small hands until they were red. Brother, your playing is so amazing. This is Mu Yueyao's new song. Isn't it? All the girls in my class sing this song every single day. I just smiled and didn't give an answer. After all, only I knew for sure that this was a masterpiece of that world. At the same time, inside the massive manor, Mu Yueyao was still awake, sitting by the piano. The soft light draped over her body, and along with the melodious piano tune, she shone like an elegant queen. As she gradually immersed herself in the music, the playing became more and more atmospheric. After the beautiful piece concluded, Butler Liu, standing nearby, couldn't help but applaud. Whenever she finished a perfect performance like this, she couldn't help but reminisce about the past, back when she was only 7 years old, watching a piano master on the screen, whose fingers glided passionately across the keys, playing powerful musical chapters. She fell deeply in love with this instrument. Now she's worshipped by fans as a maestro, but when she first started touching the piano, she was considered by her teacher to have zero talent. Initially, her musical perception was very poor, not nearly as sharp as other kids her age. Next was the insufficient length of her fingers. To become a true piano maestro, long slender hands are a prerequisite. That's what the teacher said during the first lesson. Back then, she was always at the bottom among her peers, until my appearance changed her life. Even until now, she still can't forget that boy. The first time he saw her play, that boy had the same conditions as her. My fingers weren't long or slender either, but I still played that piece perfectly. It was from that very day that Mu Yueyao started a silent rivalry with me. She believed that if a poor brat like me could do it, she also believed she could definitely do even better. So she regained her confidence and began to practice the piano rigorously. Afterwards, she gradually surpassed her peers and earned the recognition of that maestro. She was even invited to perform at the famous Grand Theater to play alongside her teacher in a piano duet. She still remembers how lucky she was back then. You have to know that her piano teacher was a top artist in the country who had once swept every championship in major national competitions. And yet, she wasn't even his star pupil. There were several older students whose level and technique were a full tier above hers at that time. Even though she desperately craved this opportunity, she knew there was only one slot, and the chances were she wouldn't be picked. But who could have guessed that at the last minute, the teacher decided to use a lottery to choose a student at random to share the stage. As if blessed by the goddess of luck, Mu Yueyao was chosen just like that. She still remembers clearly in the Grand Theater, her piano teacher, who usually had a short temper, was extremely patient throughout the entire performance. Furthermore, when playing the duet, the teacher constantly tried to match her rhythm, acting as her support the entire time, leaving all the spotlight on stage for her. Even though it was her first time on stage, performing in front of a massive audience, she quickly adapted to the rhythm. Her whole being became incredibly confident, no longer fearing the eyes watching from the audience. The moment the music ended, the teacher gave the center of the stage to her. She bowed with grace, neither arrogant nor insecure. After the media captured this moment, they all gave extremely high praise in their articles, saying the stage seemed to be custom made for her. After officially going through that performance, Mu Yueyao no longer doubted her own talent. What do you think? After playing, she habitually called my name. Only then did she suddenly realize that after so many years together day and night, she had long since become accustomed to it. Accustomed to the fact that when she practiced alone, I was always there by her side. whenever she felt tired of playing. Silently watching me perform a piece could always make her feel relaxed and comfortable. Thinking of this, a flicker of regret appeared in her heart. Regret that during the discussion about whether I should stay or leave, she had voted yes. But thinking about it from another perspective, all of this was for her biological brother after all. Besides, I never originally belonged to the Mu family. Kicking me out seemed like the natural thing to do. Very quickly, she thought of a way to have the best of both worlds. She heard that my current family situation wasn't good, even bordering on destitute. She thought she could pay to hire me back as a practice partner. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel smug. However, she decided to wait a few days before contacting me. After all, they had just kicked me out of the house. Hiring me to come back immediately with money made her feel a bit awkward to bring up. Just as she stood up to go to bed, she caught sight of the camera placed nearby. This was something she specifically requested to be put there, partly to record daily life, and partly to review her performances afterward, to see if there was anything to improve. She had also used the footage from this camera to secretly study my playing techniques. So she immediately thought of the fact that there might still be videos of me from recently. In truth, it had been too long since she last watched me play. So she told Butler Liu to draw the curtains and project my most recent performance onto the screen. The moment the familiar melody played, Mo Yueyao froze on the spot. Her face was filled with utter disbelief. She repeatedly confirmed the specific timestamp of the video. After that, her mind felt like it was struck by a bolt of lightning. The piece I was playing in the video was the exact new song she had just released half a month ago. But the recording time of this performance was actually even earlier than when she composed the song a whole week earlier. At this time back at my house, I had just finished playing a piece. Mom also just brought the final dish to the table, but while we were eating together, Ye Qinghuan keenly realized something was wrong. There seemed to be a distance between us now. She could only keep comforting herself, thinking that since I'd faced so many upheavals lately, I must still be slowly adjusting to everything. Maybe in just a day or two, I would return to the way I was before. Right after finishing the meal, I didn't delay for a second and used the excuse of washing dishes to hide in the kitchen. This made Ye Qinghuan feel very frustrated. Auntie, then I'll head out now. Ye Qinghuan felt more wronged the more she thought about it. After all, she had put so much effort into the birthday gift. Yet my attitude toward her, I didn't even bother to say a single thank you. However, as she reached out to open the door, in her heart, she still hoped I would offer to walk her out if I just spoke up now. She would generously forget the unpleasantness from earlier. Based on the many years we spent together, she was certain that I definitely would, but reality slapped her right in the face. Until the moment she closed the main door in disappointment. I still stood in the kitchen without making a move. Ye Qinghuan's voice was so frustrated she was about to cry. She secretly swore in her heart that she would never casually buy breakfast for me again. At least not this week, absolutely no way. Brother, that sister seems to be angry. I also knew full well that my actions just now were too much. Right at that moment, the doorbell suddenly rang. I quickly dried my hands and ran to open the door, thinking I should at least say sorry to her. But the person standing outside wasn't Ye Qinghuan. Why are you standing there blocking the door? Move aside and let eldest sister in to talk. Mo Yulu also coldly spoke up. Why did you block my number and Yue Yao's? She has an urgent matter, but couldn't get in touch with you at all. Hearing the words eldest sister, I just found it ridiculous. Sorry, who are you referring to? Excuse me, may I ask who exactly you are, Mu Yulu? Heard this and a flash of disgust crossed her eyes. Are you still throwing a tantrum because you were kicked out? I'm telling you, there's no need for this act. You were never actually a member of our Mu family. By this point, you know the truth well enough. Are you still trying to deceive yourself and others pretending not to know, having the thick skin to keep clinging to our family? Muyulu put on that superior face again. If it were before, maybe I would have felt heartbroken and sad, but the current me has long since stopped caring, just as I was about to close the door and kick them out. My mom heard the noise and invited them in. Mom didn't know anything about the bad blood between us. Muyulu stepped into the living room in her high heels, her eyes full of disdain as she scanned the place once. For someone used to living in a luxurious mansion like her, could this tiny cramped space even be called a living room? It wasn't even as large as her storage room. I won't beat around the bush with you anymore. I've brought all your personal stuff from your room. Weiyao has some issues with the piano she wants to consult you on. From now on, come to her place every weekend to practice for 2 days. I'll cover all your university tuition for the next few years. In addition, I'll pay you a salary. You name the conditions, how much do you want? 30 million or 50 million, it's all fine. The reason she was so generous, offering those conditions, was absolutely not out of sibling affection. She purely viewed paying the tuition as an investment. As for those tens of millions in part-time wages, it's nothing more than charity for a malnourished loser like me. After hearing those peak arrogant words, a hint of hesitation flashed across my face. This wasn't because I was swayed by the tuition and the salary, but because a certain person suddenly popped into my head. Mu Yueyao used to be strong and unyielding. To ever give in like that, while that salary of tens of millions was nothing more than charity for a malnourished brat like me. After hearing these utterly arrogant words, a hint of hesitation flashed across my face. This wasn't because I was moved by the tuition money or the salary, but because a certain person suddenly came to mind. Such great pieces of music. Anymore, she'll likely fall back into the abyss of the past. Drained of inspiration and stuck in a creative deadlock, she will start to doubt her own talent and basic abilities. Eventually, she'll just give up entirely, like when she was a kid. But I quickly snuffed out this pity. The heartless decision to kick me out of the house back then was made because those dear sisters of mine all voted together. They never saw me as real family. Why should I lower myself to worry about them? Seeing that I didn't immediately refuse like usual, Mu Yulu couldn't help but let out a cold smirk. She thought she had completely seen through my games, thinking that my previous toughness was just a ploy to demand more money. But just as she was feeling smug, I didn't hesitate to mock her, asking me to go back to that stinking trash heap to play. Sorry, it makes me nauseous and I'm afraid of the filth. I won't set foot in that dump ever again, not even half a step. Besides, there's truly no connection left between us. Could you two please stop being so persistent in my house? As soon as I spoke, the entire living room fell dead silent. She's all excellent. The assistant following her looked at me in disbelief. Is there something wrong with your head, or are you crazy? If you miss this chance offered by CEO Mu, you will definitely regret it for the rest of your life. In the eyes of that pragmatic assistant, as long as I bowed my head and admitted fault, even if it meant staying at the Mu house under a different status, I could surely climb the social ladder later, bringing my mother and sister along to enjoy a life of luxury. Mu Yulu suppressed her rage and pointed at my face, shouting, Mu-chen, I'm being merciful and giving you one last chance. Immediately and obediently bow your head to apologize, then every weekend get lost and go escort your second sister to practice. Those generous terms I just offered are still valid, but I only replied to her with a single extremely decisive get out. Mu Yulu stormed out in a rage, slamming the door. Sitting in the car, she swore to draw a complete line and focus entirely on preparing for the grand welcoming party for her precious younger brother, Mu Xuan. Just at this moment, her phone received a payment invoice, a deduction of exactly 530,000 Vietnamese dong, all coming from Mu Xuan. The invoice didn't specify the exact purpose of the spending. To her, this amount of money was nothing more than a drop in the bucket. This new younger brother had been wandering outside suffering for 20 years. So consider this a small compensation from an older sister. Meanwhile, Mu Yueyao discovered some shocking news. She called her former mentor to chat, but actually to find out the truth. My piano talent actually far exceeded hers. That performance on stage back then was absolutely not due to a lucky draw, but because I had proactively given up that slot for her. This made her immediately recall when I once asked her, will our family stay together forever? The following night fell. I stepped onto the university campus. Yesterday, my mind was constantly calculating one thing. What should I do with the rest of my life to make it truly meaningful? But in this society, you can't do anything without money. I have to accumulate in the shortest time possible a large amount of wealth to live a new life. My head is full of business opportunities. For example, crazily buying the dip on real estate in the city center, or pouring capital into high potential dark horse stocks. But the payback period for these investments is way too long. Very soon after I targeted a shortcut to make money quickly. So I signed up to join the freshman welcoming party tonight and happened to run into Ye Qinghuan right on campus. The two of us headed toward the party stage hall together right now. Inside the stage hall, spacious and bright, the shimmering and brilliant lights had already converged on the main stage. As one of the top universities in the country, the scale of this freshman welcoming party could be said to be extremely grand. The school had invited many famous media outlets to report live, while also opening an official live stream on popular social media platforms. Currently, the performance hasn't officially opened yet, but the number of viewers flooding into the live stream room has already exceeded 1,000 people. As soon as I reached the hall, I was caught by the sharp-eyed counselor. He dragged us straight into the backstage area. While resting, Ye Qinghuan looked at me with a face full of doubt. Normally, I'm clearly an extremely low-key person. Yet this time I made an exception and signed up to perform on stage. During prep, the counselor leaned in and asked me, tonight's freshman welcoming party is extremely important. The school leadership arranged for you to be the first one on stage to open. Mu-chen, are you 100% sure about this? Hearing that, I calmly nodded. Teacher, rest assured. Just leave it to me. I feel my piano skills are good enough to debut before everyone. Not long after, the freshman welcoming party officially began. The host showed clear amazement seeing me sit before the piano. Word is the piece I'm about to perform is an entirely original composition. In the audience, people were buzzing. Who is this kid that's so arrogant, original? Piano music. Does he actually have top tier skills? If you don't even know this, then you're seriously out of the loop. He's the younger brother of Jiang Cheng's richest person, Mu Chen, but word is a few days ago, the real young master was found. The Mu family already issued a notice cutting ties with him. With the sharp sound of a switch, the brilliant lights on the stage suddenly went out. The entire studio fell deathly silent, so quiet that even a pin dropping could be heard. A dazzling spotlight beamed down from above, locking its glow right on me. I followed the light, walking toward the piano. In the center of the stage, he leisurely and elegantly sat down on the piano bench, opened the lid, and casually adjusted the microphone's angle. In the silent atmosphere, thousands of people present held their breath and watched. A clear piano sound like a mountain spring began to ring out. A beautiful melody that no one here had ever heard before caused all the teachers and students in the hall to look at each other in shock. They turned and asked one another. Originally, they had come with the intent to see a joke, thinking this original piece was just some cheap patchwork. Never in a million years did they expect this kid to have such genuine talent. The gentle notes gradually filled the massive studio. Through this melodious rising and falling piano sound, the audience seemed to see sunlight streaming through the stained glass of a church, softly resting on a bride's wedding dress. A perfect couple, gazing deeply into each other's eyes, their looks overflowing with love. Right at the moment they were about to take their vows before the priest, the joyful piano sound suddenly turned somber and melancholy. The beautiful wedding picture painted just moments ago, at this very second, suddenly became illusory and fragile like a reflection in a mirror or ripples in water. It was as if all the good things were nothing more than a vain dream. A burger. A famous person invited to attend shouted from the audience, "May I ask what this divine piece is actually called?" Dream Wedding. As the piece ended, I bowed and left the stage. The university's freshman welcoming ceremony continued to proceed according to the schedule. In the online world that no one noticed this piano solo created a massive seismic wave. The high-quality video of me playing was spreading like wildfire across the internet. The keyword Dream Wedding surged straight into the top trending searches. Oh my god, this is just too cool. Those long, slender fingers of his tapping down aren't piano keys at all. Every beat hits my heartstrings perfectly. Why can't this piece be found on any major platforms? Don't tell me it's a brand new original piece, released exclusively as a limited edition. As the hype for the piano piece exploded exponentially, the country's giant music websites finally couldn't sit still anymore. They sent their music directors to rush to our school that very night, determined to secure the exclusive rights at all costs. Meanwhile, right now is the welcoming banquet to celebrate Mu Xuan's return. Mu Yulu held a wine glass in her hand, wondering why she couldn't see her second sister anywhere in the hall. It was clearly planned for her to play to thank the guests. But at that moment, that director had already blocked me backstage. "Hello, Mu Chen. It's a pleasure to meet you. We are extremely eager to buy the exclusive streaming rights for this song. I wonder if you're interested in collaborating," he went on, "and on offering very attractive profit-sharing schemes. Even if he were beaten to death, he wouldn't expect me to agree so readily. I plan to sell the full copyright of this piece to him." This was absolutely a deal with a massive ROI. Just as we were about to settle on a final price, the lounge door was suddenly pushed open violently. "Mu Chen, definitely don't sell it. You have to think long term. Don't just look at this chump change." The person who barged in was none other than my dear second sister, Mu Yue Yao. After watching the live stream, she rushed straight here in a frenzy. "I know you're in need of money now that you've been kicked out of the house, but you absolutely must not be short-sighted and sell off all the copyrights like that. As long as you hold onto this piece, it will become even more valuable." I didn't even spare her a single glance, or did I answer? Immediately, only coldly asking a question back. "Back when I was forced to pack up and get out of the Mu house, you also voted in favor, didn't you?" Hearing that, Mu Yueyao clearly froze. Then with reddened eyes, she guiltily nodded. Witnessing this act of hers, my heart didn't feel a single spark of emotion. Toward that cold-blooded nature, I had long since given up hope. Mu Yueyao, at this moment, was choked up with things she wanted to say. "Mu Chen, do you know how much I've suffered lately? Without you by my side to practice with, I haven't slept all night. Can I still invite you to play together like we used to? I really miss the days when we sat together. Back then, our relationship was clearly so wonderful." Just as she was getting emotional, I loudly interrupted her. "That nonsense you're spewing has nothing to do with me. If you want to play, get back to your luxurious mansion and play there. Don't come in front of me acting all crazy and losing your mind, Mu Yue Yao." faced with these words of mine. She, who was standing there with a superior attitude, couldn't have imagined in her wildest dreams that I would show such intense disgust toward her. Before, with just a casual call, he would come to me immediately. I could ignore the sun and rain to stay by your side practicing for over 10 years. Throughout those 10 long years in the river of time. Even if I was sick with a high fever, I was never late by even half a second. Actually, in her heart, she knows better than anyone. Before, I used to consider playing for her to be my life's greatest treasure. But what's with this cold gaze now? The massive contrast made Mu Yueyao's eyes even redder. Mu Chen, how did you become so cold-blooded? Before, you never had the heart to scold me with this tone. I truly love listening to you play. In the future, can you spend a little more time with me? Just a bit more hearing these disgusting words. I was so angry I actually laughed. Is my brain broken? Or did this group of people all get amnesia together? Before, who was it that called me the trash of the Mu family? Who said I was a useless eyesore at home and joined forces to kick me out? After mercilessly kicking me into the gutter, now that you see me in, glory, you run back to remember my good points. Do you people even have any shame? I spoke up, coldly, without holding back. First, if your brain is sick, go register for a psychiatric exam immediately. Don't stay here trying to claim kin. You and I aren't close at all. After saying that, I pressed the button for security right in front of her. I dialed the number for the security room. This is the backstage during break time. There's an irrelevant loiterer here acting crazy and harassing me. Please send some people to kick her out. Hanging up the phone, I looked down at her arrogantly. Second, my business is none of your concern. So stop bossing me around. My life is very precious. I don't want to waste my little remaining time bickering with a fake person like you. As for Mu Xuan, so much resentment surged in my heart. He didn't expect the situation to completely spiral out of control like this. In the past, she relied on being spoiled and caused drama more than a few times, even repeatedly trampling on my self-respect without any mercy. Every time, as long as she gave a superficial apology, I would immediately and unconditionally forgive her. The next day, the two would make up as if nothing happened. That's why she arrogantly thought that if she just bowed her head, then this time would be just like countless times before. As long as she humbled herself to admit fault, I'd have to be grateful and indebted, then continue practicing the piano with her. Therefore, she couldn't understand, even if she racked her brain, why after she humbled herself to personally come apologize, I dared to give her such a humiliating cold shoulder, just as she suppressed the shock and humiliation in her heart, intending to act like an older sister to continue the gaslighting. The security guards on duty burst into the lounge. Miss, may I ask if you are a student of this school? If not, please cooperate and leave here immediately. On Yueyao's face, a look of anxiety finally appeared. She took a step forward, seemingly still wanting to justify something, but I had already lost patience and put on noise-canceling headphones long ago, being completely ignored. A surge of self-pity rose within her, and a sharp needle-like pain spread through her chest. She couldn't understand why the situation had reached this dead end, and even less could she understand why the younger brother, who always followed her, had undergone such an earth-shattering change. Someone who was always superior like her began to feel a sense of panic. She was terrified that the shadow that had always followed her for so long was now completely detaching from her life at this very moment. Along with the increasingly harsh eviction from the security guard, Mu Yueyao could only hang her head in humiliation, kicked out of the lounge like a stray dog. By the time she returned to the manor in a daze, the grand welcoming party was slowly coming to an end. Right now, Mu Xuan was standing under the stage lights, performing with all his might. He suddenly spotted his second sister standing stunned in the crowd. He actually thought his singing had conquered his sister's heart. Little did he know, Mu Yueyao wanted to cry because he sang so poorly. The technique and god-tier piano skills from before had instantly overwhelmed everyone. This biological brother in front of her was now wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. The intense contrast made her so frustrated she just wanted to burst into tears. She suffered through the night until noon the next day. The first thing she did after waking up with a start was grab her phone to try and send a message to that chat box. She wanted to confirm whether the other party had removed her from the blacklist yet. But as soon as the phone was unlocked, a news notification popped up. The official music website announces signing a contract with piano genius Mu Chen for 7 billion Vietnamese dong to buy out the full rights to the work Dream Wedding. After reading through the press release that was causing a storm, she couldn't help but shout, "What a total idiot with zero business," since I exhausted myself, warning him not to be in such a hurry to sell. Based on her sharp eye from years in the entertainment industry, experts estimated that in less than 15 years, just the profit sharing alone would be at least 17.5 billion Vietnamese dong, not to mention the massive profits after 20 or 30 years. This infuriating News made her so heartbroken she couldn't sleep. After being cleansed by that piano solo that shocked the entire internet, she realized my piano technique had reached a masterful level that depth could rival the grandmasters who have topped this field for decades. This realization made her fall into doubt. Could it be that while acting as her practice partner, before he was hiding his true skills? Otherwise, why? Did he suddenly explode right after leaving? Suddenly shine so brightly? Could it be to preserve a shred of my self-respect? After receiving the 7 billion Vietnamese dong in royalty fees, I immediately rushed straight to the hospital to buy a bunch of imported specialized medicine, then squatted on the sidewalk scarfing down a bun. This contrast happened to fall right into Jung Jiashu's sight. If he hadn't witnessed it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it for the world. The piano genius who easily made 7 billion with one song was in private as ordinary and rough as a manual laborer, strictly following what was clearly written in black and white in the buyout contract. I entered the studio and finished recording Dream Wedding. Jung Jiashu respectfully brought over a cup of premium black tea. Mr. Mu, the money has been transferred to your account, every single cent. The reason he was so attentive to a wet behind-the-ears kid like me is entirely because I'm currently only 20 years old. At the age of 20, to be able to write such a divine masterpiece, who could be sure? This monster didn't have more in stock to drop a second or third explosive track. By taking this chance to dump resources and win me over now, his chances of securing exclusive streaming rights later would definitely be higher. Jung Jiashu excitedly stood up and extended his right hand. Mr. Mu, congratulations on our first successful collaboration. If you have more legendary works like this in the future, I believe you've seen our sincerity. We very much look forward to working with you again. However, his enthusiasm was met with a bucket of cold water. He spoke a long string of polite flattery, while I just sat there like a log, not bothering to respond for even half a second. I didn't even have any intention of standing up to shake hands. This don't give a damn attitude made him secretly annoyed. But having been in the industry for many years, he'd met many who relied on talent to look down on others. Eccentric people with strange personalities are everywhere. Just as he was about to turn and leave, I finally slowly looked up and spoke. Sorry, just now my head was a bit dazed. If you guys are looking forward to our next collaboration that much, then there's no need to waste time waiting for next time. There's no better time than the present. Let's just decide on today. And my next nonchalant sentence caused him to be so shocked his jaw dropped, unable to speak. I still have another complete score in my bag. In terms of quality, it's absolutely not inferior to Dream Wedding. By even an inch. As soon as I finished, the studio suddenly fell dead silent. Not only was Jung Jiashu shocked to his core, but even the recording technician nearby had his eyes go wide. In their hands, a masterpiece like Dream Wedding would definitely become a classic, legendary piece in the future. To write such music at only 20, well, that's all. Already qualifies someone as an outstanding genius, yet right before their eyes, I declared that I was hiding another divine track of the same caliber. How could this not leave people in absolute shock? The expression on Jung Jiashu's face right now was truly a sight to behold. This was like finding a living, breathing treasure. If he could really produce another divine track of equal rank, then just how terrifyingly high were this monster's musical talent and composing skills. But for a superstar descended to earth shining so brilliantly, why was there no fame in the industry for the past 20 years? He suppressed his excitement and respectfully invited me to sit down, unable to wait any longer to personally hear this mysterious piece. When my hands glided over the keys, countless dense notes poured out as clearly as a flash flood, breaking a dam. Immediately after, the piano sound shifted into a frenzy so intense it felt insane. The moment I touched the keys, I seemed to transform into a different person, as if I were using this music to frantically vent all my frustrations with destiny, venting every single emotion, frantically until exhausted. Jung Jiashu was so moved his entire body trembled. He had truly picked up an invaluable treasure. The Dream Wedding piece, with its beautiful melody, the only weakness people criticized was its low difficulty level. But this technical showcase piece right now was the complete opposite. The hand speed was dizzying, looking exactly like the fingers were fighting each other. At the same time, in the grand but cold Mu family manner, Mu Yulu stood outside Mu Yueyao's room, knocking for a long time. Yueyao, stop sleeping. Hurry out and come downstairs for dinner. However, when the room door slowly opened, Mu Yueyao, with disheveled hair, stepped out like a soulless corpse. This pathetic state made Mu Yulu startle. Yueyao, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well? But she quickly guessed where the knot lay. Is it because of that ungrateful Mu Chen? Did you sneak off to see him last night? He said harsh things to you again, didn't he? I'll go vent your anger for you right now. Mu Yulu felt that if she herself suffered At Mu Chen's hands, so be it after all her past. Negligence caused Mu Chen some grief. But her second sister, what did she ever do wrong to him? Mu Yueyao heard this and burst into sobs. Sister, tell me, were those songs really written by me? Can I really write those golden melodies? Mu Yulu was stunned hearing this, hurrying to reassure her. Of course, besides you, who else could? Hearing these words, Mu Yueyao sobbed even harder. It's Mu Chen. He wrote all of them for me. Are you confused from a fever? How could that ungrateful guy know how to compose? Mu Yulu completely didn't understand what she was raving about. Mu Chen had lived in the Mu house for over 10 years, and she'd never heard of him having such talent. Taking 10,000 steps back, even if he actually knew how to play the piano, then what does that have to do with the songs? Written for you ever since Mu Chen blocked me. Manhwa has also stopped replying to my messages, so I dare to assert that Manhwa is Mu Chen. Mu Yulu was stunned for a moment upon hearing that, then she suddenly remembered who Manhwa was. He had custom-tailored so many divine tracks for her sister. The quality of every single piece was absurdly high. All of them were phenomenal hits that swept the music charts. Mu Yulu had also wanted to find this benefactor to reward them on her sister's behalf. But this person had never appeared in public. Furthermore, for all these years, Manhwa only had one-way contact with her via the internet. If you say this mysterious big shot is Mu Chen, Mu Yulu wouldn't believe it even if she were beaten to death. There's absolutely no way. This must be a coincidence. He absolutely cannot have such outstanding talent. But before she could finish, her sister interrupted. Mu Chen really does have such world-shaking talent. Maybe you haven't had time to follow the news on Vanningu recently. Mu Chen just composed a divine track. And even my mentor has nothing but praise for it. The largest music platform in the country. Yehua is spending a massive amount to buy it. Mu Yulu truly didn't care about Vanningu news. But after hearing her sister's shocking explanation, the first thought that popped into her head was how deep the schemes of this ungrateful Mu Chen were. Living in the Mu house for over 10 years and playing dead without producing half a song. Yet the moment he's kicked out, he runs off to show off. Right then, Mu Yulu received a call from her lawyer. President Mu, the matter you asked me to quietly investigate now has a lead. Regarding the old case of Mu Chen harassing a female college student spreading online the hard evidence confirms that girl fabricated it. Mu Chen was wrongly accused from start to finish. We have found that girl's account once received a sum of black money. The sender was clearly the name of her biological brother Mu Xuan. Faced with this nuclear bomb of news that shattered her worldview, Mu Yulu, who was always decisive, now sank deep into self-reproach. Remembering when the scandal broke back then, she only relied on prejudiced impressions and insisted Mu Chen did it. To gag him and protect the Mu family's fake reputation, she had arrogantly stripped Mu Chen of his right to clear his name. Just as the Mu family was in turmoil, the internet exploded again. Keywords about the music website purchasing a new piano track suddenly leaped to the top of the hot search rankings across the web. This scene directly left the drama-hungry netizens dazed. Good lord, what's triggered this guy? How are these divine tracks being mass-produced like chickens laying eggs, and he's maintaining a crazy release speed of one song a day? Just who exactly? Is this guy named Mu Chen? At this moment, I was hiding in the park on the mountain behind school, leaning on the railing watching the lake. Adults were taking children boating, perhaps because my soul had endured 2 lifetimes of loneliness. I had more than a few times longed for a family bond like that. Mu Chen Yo, king of skipping class. As expected, you're hiding here. Why didn't I see you in class today? A familiar, clear female voice interrupted my train of thought. Ye Qinghuan was standing below the steps, reaching her hand out toward me. Why are you standing there like a log? Hurry up and give this young lady a hand. Hearing that, I leaned over and reached out to pull her up. Unexpectedly, when my hand applied force, I almost tumbled into the lake. Mu Chen, are you okay? Why has your strength become so weak? I gasped for air after hearing those mindless words. Suddenly, my heart tightened. Everything shattered in the blink of an eye. If not for this terminal illness, I could have bravely accepted Ye Qinghuan's feelings. In the future, I would also have so many opportunities to leisurely go boating with my mother and sister. However, this casual and sincere question from Ye Qinghuan instantly pulled me from a beautiful dream back to cold reality. A walking corpse like me doesn't deserve such luxury. Wishes right now. Mu Chen, you are seriously too amazing now. I heard one of your songs sold for 7 billion. Right now, all of social media is going crazy, hailing you as a genius. While I can't even understand the music, coldly and decisively I spoke up. Qinghuan, I don't know what our relationship is considered right now. If we're lovers, then let's break up. Yeah. Qinghuan's mind went blank the moment she heard that. She never imagined, even in her dreams, that I would say those words to her. Is it because I did something wrong to make you mad? You're not at fault. It's because I've changed. When I sat in that high-end office signing, contracts with those people. Do you know what kind of future they painted for me? They promised me that in the future, I would collaborate with many better musicians and stars. I will officially step into a completely new high society.